Hi, everybody. I'm trying to figure out how to get Ni'Ja to join us. Ni'Ja, I just sent you an invitation, and I think there's. Oh wait, now I go to this, and I say, why does it say unable to join? Okay, now it says add, waiting for you to connect. Dun dun dun. Let me work on my screen situation.
Hey, hey,
Yes. Hello.
we did it.
I have too much time in this view. I'm gonna try this view. How you doing?
I'm good. I can't really hear you.
Can you hear? Is this? Can you hear me now?
The volume's real low. Hold on. Let me see if I can put on headphones or something.
Okay. I also have
Uh,
the
what'd you
thing.
say?
I'm setting my iPad on my laptop to balance because you can't go live from a laptop. It's like all the
Getting it right.
logistics. I got to turn on while it's in the frame. I don't think we can see. Hello, folks joining us. Can you hear me now, Nigel?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay, good. Hi, welcome to Checking
Hello.
In. Thanks for joining us, people who are joining us. I'm Ben Pryor, a senior producer at Kelly Strayhorn Theater in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And this is Checking In. We're here with Ni'Ja Whitson,
What's
who
up?
is an artist, amongst other things. And you are in California. You're in Los Angeles?
I am.
Mm-hmm. How's
Yes, doing the. What would you say?
doing the who? I was trying to figure out. I'm trying to get my head in gear, and figure out what we're doing. Maybe I will ask you to introduce yourself a little bit first before I ask you to tell us about California.
Word. Hi, everybody, and what's up, Ben? Thank you for asking me to do this. It
Yeah.
gave me an excuse to like wear a hat and put on clean clothes. Like, oh, I might actually see someone that I haven't seen in a while. Appreciate it. I'm here in California. I split my time between Los Angeles and New York. I teach at UC Riverside, and my home and family and most of my art practices in New York. So I'm back and forth, and I had the luck and difficulty of being kind of stuck here. But I think it also, with all things considered, was the blessing to be able to be on this coast right now. So yeah.
Like New York. Yeah,
Yep.
it'll be intense. Can
Hmm.
you tell us something of who you are as an artist?
Absolutely. I'm a multidisciplinary artist. Most of my work takes form as live performance and installation. I have increasingly been working more and more with media, a lot of kind of projection work and experimentations with that. And I'm a writer as well. I would say that I was a writer before I was any other kind of artist, and they kind of found themselves and now are pretty woven. But I have a dedicated writing practice that is sometimes joined with, sometimes separate from my other performance practice. I'm an object maker and experiment quite a bit with different kinds of materials. So I tend to follow a work an idea, and it manifests in whatever form is needed for that project. So I'm working across forms.
Awesome. We have worked together I'm coming up with two ways, if that's right. Ni'Ja did a performance. I'm I'm like screwing up the name, or I'm
A
gonna say the name
meditation
and
on
it's
tongues.
not the right. Exactly. I was gonna say tongues untied, and then I was like, no, that's the I'm getting it wrong. Um, it was a piece called A Meditation on Tongues. That was a meditation of tongues untied that we showed in American Realness. I can't remember when. And then I got to do a residency with you over at Gibney a couple years later. Um, I wonder if you can say more about the, I don't know, the thematics of your artistic inquiry, if you feel there is one and or many and or sort of where that goes.
There's definitely many, I would say. Some of the thematics have been looking at the Black queer archives, and that's where the Tongues Untied work came from. And always interspersing that with research into Yoruba diaspora study, thought and spirituality, looking at the body and gender. And that project was, I would say, probably an early study and really articulating the ways that Black queer masculinities manifest in beyond the body into creative practice of things that I certainly have been living into, but that project was a space that was kind of catapulted transitioning for me. So those themes are in a lot of my work. I've been very interested. I had a spiritual reading some time ago, and an elder talked to me about locating the spiritual principle in everything, and that has really been a mainstay. Is trying to understand the ways that spirituality is undergirding my connection with political inquiry, and in multiple directions of time. So in this moment, some of that is manifesting in looking at more kind of cosmological and an inquiry into astrophysics. So, but I've been looking at science in different ways for many years. This is the most kind of obvious way that's showing up. But I think that is another way, honestly, of looking at Yoruba diaspora. It's just kind of like the other side of it, maybe, or just thinking of like the cosmos flipped. Is how that has been showing up. But themes and theories of Black queer, trans embodiedness, masculinity and gender, Yoruba diaspora study, ritual and resistance across Black diasporic forms are threads that are throughout my work.
Yeah. I wonder I'm thinking about sort of the overlap in your own research and work around Black masculinity. And then I'm thinking about your work in Cynthia Oliver's project, which is how maybe some folks from KST might know you, right? Because my understanding, I wasn't here then, but I think you were here with Cynthia's project in 2018. And I wonder if you could say a little bit about sort of maybe what that project was and how that intersected or not, or rubbed against your own, sort of research in those ways as maybe a starting place. And then I'd be curious to hear about your experience in Pittsburgh.
Thank you. Yeah, I've known her for a few years, and she had been having lots of conversations with me. Around the time she asked me to be in the project, we were having other conversations about taking on a new position, and she was just doing what she does, is advising people out in the world. And she asked me, at least to that point, had been researching, and this is all from my understanding and experience in being in the work, had been looking at masculinity mostly from a cis man's perspective. By the time she asked me to be in the work, Dwayne, Cyrus, Jonathan Gonzalez, and Niall Jones, all Black queer men, and myself, offered this other really overt queering of masculinity, and then for me in the room to look at a non-binary and trans exploration of that. And it was certainly, I think, for many audiences who are used to going to see Black dance in a processional theater, pretty new and shifting to have Cynthia engaging the themes of that work in that way. I think all Jonathan, Niall, and I have worked in prosceniums and in experimental spaces, predominantly more experimental spaces. So for at least for me, it was a really different relationship to audience. I enjoy and tend to create kind of an interrupting of that proscenium in as many ways as possible. So to be talking about gender in that way where was distance was pretty new for me, and was something that I was constantly having to work with a bit and through, I would say. Each of us offered our own personal narratives that were then curated and remixed by Cynthia. So it was an interesting space to both have one story involved, but one story sort of dramatized and revisioned by someone else. I think all of us might have talked about those things really differently in our own works. We all have very different creative voices, but it was certainly an experiment in trusting someone else to do that, and recognizing that we were in a collaborative process, but also in a space of like really supporting someone else's vision.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's makes me think about my own experience in Miguel's Asian Beauty Part 2, right? I don't know if you remember this, where I was performing a work of Miguel's that was about our relationship, and very different, but also similar in that you're ultimate, like he's sort of molding some kind of version of you. I felt like I had to just sort of give up with that. Not that I felt dissatisfied in any way, but I don't know. The process was certainly challenging, I think, to be working with. I don't know if what it was for you guys, but
certainly for me, I would say challenging in ways and really revealing. But that piece that you just said of like giving up. It's like having power, but also realizing like this is someone else's vision. It's a really precarious space to be in as a performer.
For real.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm wondering what you're up to in your own artistic practice these days. Maybe let's take that question from the perspective of pre-COVID, because then we'll hit maybe the post-COVID. Because I think it's probably different, or I don't know.
It is.
So I'm curious, like, sort of what you've been up to and or what's been cooking for you pre-COVID, and then let's do sort of what's happened after that.
Yeah, thank you. I've been working on, there's kind of like 2 or 3, I don't know. I'm just on the grind for, because that's what I'm here for. But a couple of different parts of practice converge simultaneously. So I'm usually building one and a second kind of sibling project together. So I've been developing the Unarrival Experiments, which is this like multi-form, multi-year project that is looking at dark matter and dark energy in relationship to Black premature death, through the lens of really like Black queerness, Black trans embodiedness. And so I've been looking at the theories of dark matter and dark energy, other astrophysics theories, quantum theories, and the ways that those are embodied as like spiritual intelligences connected to Yoruba theology or not, because we start a project and we have ideas of what the thing is and how things are connected, and then information comes and that shit gets disrupted. So I'm in a place where I'm wrestling with what I think it is and what is revealing itself to be. So that is manifesting as an indoor installation work with lots of media and virtual reality experimentation, and a performance of that will be happening at Impact next year, maybe. I don't know what universe. What's that?
There's also a live component to that, like a performance.
There is.
I'm thinking that's what you were working on at Gibney way back.
It is.
Yeah?
It is.
Okay.
Yep. I was working on that piece, and then Oba Queen that premiered last year. Those pieces were being developed together, but what was fantastic about working on the Unrivaled experiments at Gibney is that you all had that phenomenal dark room, and we've been developing the work in spaces that get as dark as possible. So being in a space that was completely Black was just a beautiful, generative experience. So it's been a model that I've tried to continue to find, even if that means what I'm calling now is like installing Blackness in institutions, and what it means to say, great, you got all these white walls, now we want to get rid of it. You don't get to see anything. And all, the metaphors of that, of being, bringing Black people to institutional spaces, but then also, creating Black work and dark work. So that has been, it's a writing project. So there's a kind of hybrid poetic book that I've written, and we're using those as scores. And there's a second text that I'm starting to work on now. So there's a live performative element that happens indoors. I haven't yet gotten to explore that of the second component, which is having those experiments outdoors. So I've been doing some solo research at night in different spaces, and have done that around the country, which has been fantastic. But doing that in groups has been, of course, shut down in this moment. So that project will just do the unfolding that it will do over time. And then there are a couple of other like commissions and collaborations that I've been developing that are now having a longer developmental life, which is wonderful. Nothing wrong with that. But really the Unrivaled experiments is my focus, my creative focus right now.
And so what can you talk about? We have some fun friends joining, Jamil and Ashley.
Hey.
Can you talk about now kind of what COVID has done to your whole situation? Obviously, you're stuck in California, which has its pros and cons. Sort of curious about, are you teaching on the internet now? Are you like screwed for income for the next 6 months, or what's the reality you're going through?
Yeah, man, it is, sorry, it's hard because it's like, it is so it's so real that it's like, I'm still finding myself, thankfully, at least today, having to laugh out loud about it, because it's like, it is, the reality is really, it's flooring to me. I had some residencies set up for this work, some other commissions. I was really excited about world premiere of, it's called Omar, an opera based on Omar Ibn Said's life, written by Rhiannon Giddens and directed by Charlotte Brathwaite. That is going to be pushed back a bit, and just other work.
Were you working on that as a collaborator or
Yeah,
participating in a performer? Or oh wow,
choreographer. So that is being postponed till next year, which is great that they are still doing it.
Yeah, where was that going to happen, or where will that happen?
It'll happen at the Spalito Festival in South Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah,
And is that going elsewhere?
What's that?
I'm curious. Was that the only place that was happening at this point? Or?
They were planning to tour it.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're in conversations with other places for it, for sure. But I think it, is certainly a beautiful opera and experimental opera, and something new and beautiful. So I'm, the hope is for it to have as many audiences as possible. And it's having those kinds of also creative collaborations that helps to feed me a bit. So essentially all of that work. I was on a call with Jumatatu Po yesterday, who's doing incredible research around how this is impacting artists. And he asked, you know, well, how many things got canceled? And it took me a while. It was probably like 5 minutes of us talking and thinking through that. There were 9 different engagements that I had scheduled between now and July that have since been canceled. So it's great, a great deal of work. I have the blessing of not teaching this quarter, because I was planning to be gone to do my work. So it means that I get the opportunity to sit, which is not easy for me because you know, I like to be active and like to work, but it's a different kind of labor that I also know that I need. So I'm able to be a bit more quiet, get some research done that I haven't been able to because of the traveling that I'm usually engaged in. So yeah, it's been incredibly different. I mean, it's different for everybody, but you know, I think the significance of pause is not lost on me in multiple ways.
Yeah. We have a question came in from someone watching that I want to put out to you, and then maybe I'll come back because I'm curious about some of that other stuff. But this is maybe going back into your artistic research. The question is, what's the first step in bringing Blackness into physical space?
Oh, that's a great question. What's the first? The first step has been negotiating good funds for the Black people to be in the room, and making sure people are taken care of in that way. But in terms of like physically, the first steps honestly have been covering windows. It feels like a really simple thing, but you know, institutions go to really great lengths to block out darkness. And I feel like it's a whole other, this kind of like mental shift conversation to have with people that it isn't about, there's something that is assumed that the light and the whiteness brings this kind of, you know, levity and purity and all of that to the space, and lots of writing about white boxes and people get that. But to have people think about the ways that that is antithetical to darkness and darkness as a generative space really actually takes a lot of time. So it's one of the first concepts I've been talking through with people, and making sure that I travel with dark materials, and then making sure in those early conversations that institutions are prepared with them, because it takes a lot of effort.
Do you find that I'm curious about the how much potentially curators or people you're working with are like
Mm-hmm.
sort of up on that as a part of the reality of your practice, or does that um, sort of like literal and metaphorical reality like trip people up sometimes in the process? Or I don't know, I'm curious about your experience in that.
Definitely, definitely. I think once it's the worst situation, but I've been finding it over and over again that it for them, as much as I have been invited, I also have to still prove my ideas. At least this one, I'm finding that folks are asking me to prove it. So it's not until I've come in and done the work of darkening the space. That also tends to mean like some other kind of like spiritual work, because of what has, you know, happened in the space before me, that folks feel it and see it and then are on board. But that also is too late, right? Like by the time I'm in the room, it's too late. Too much other work has had to happen. So impact, I think, is like,
Oh God.
yeah, they have been, and you know, and they also have that, you know, big dark studio. What you doing over there?
I screamed.
So yeah.
Sorry. Yes, I know. I was hoping to go see Jamil's premiere actually at Impact
Yep,
before all this
yep.
happened, which of course is not happening. But I'm excited to figure out what is happening. I haven't been. I have to do more connecting the dots in my mind about this whole Earth Day thing that Jamil is doing. I'm
Shout
sorry
out to Jamil.
you're still there, and I'm doing a disservice to your work in my poor description here. Um, there were, oh gosh, there were two things that came up, and I feel like one I had wanted to, or am I cutting you off because my screen? Oh, look, now we're getting more questions from the crowd. Somebody's saying, would love to hear more about the Yoruba influence.
Oh, Yoruba influence. It is everything. It is also, it's so present that sometimes I don't see where it is until after the work has been made. So for instance, well, I mean, this is not quite that example. What I'm learning in the unravel experiments is that Obatala is an Orisha who actually is known as King of the White Cloth, but is actually light is taboo to him. So Obatala lives in the darkness, and Obatala is the mythology is that Obatala created humans and is known as the king of the Orisha. So that has been, that's kind of a I was going to say light bulb. So that was an epiphany to me to be like, oh shit, okay, this Orisha energy that has already been in the work is already the work. So sometimes it is, following the thing until they emerge. But I've, been training in capoeira, and the Yoruba diaspora has been in my life for a long time. And I'm in a point now, I'm a Ifa practitioner, but truly my creative work is spiritual practice for me. So the Orisha and Ifa knowledge is in everything. Sometimes more overtly in parts of a work, maybe more overtly, but there's always ritual. There's the work is always ceremony, which means that the work is always medicinal in some way. So that those pieces of it are not only in process, they aren't dramatized. I believe that that's real actual work that's happening. So I'm creating the live experiences to be extensions of sacred work and ceremonial work. So those aren't, I'm not putting on or trying to dramatize Yoruba practice. I'm kind of letting it unfold in and as the work.
That's great. That also sort of really touches on. I wanted to refer to your bio. Your bio describes you as a wound and word worker, which I thought was really nice and poetic. And I feel like that was one of the nuggets that I was forgetting that I wanted to ask you about, but I feel like we just kind of went there. But I don't know if there's any more you want to say about that in relationship to your body of work.
Yeah, thank you. It really is everything. I've been wrestling with ways to not say healing. I think it's kind of played, and it is true for lots of people, and it's work that folks are really doing, but it's gotten like such it's so cliche in this time, and it's easy to say you're doing healing work, and I think for the most part, folks that are doing healing work don't gotta say that that's what they're doing. But I think it's important to nod to the fact that that's there, so that at least for me, so folks know who they're interfacing with. So I think there is something about working with wounds and to acknowledge that there's pain and struggle in that, because there's nothing very flowery, I think, about what I'm doing. That I think there's a like aesthetic of that softness that the word healing invokes that I don't really prescribe to, but to think about working wounds is to elucidate that there's toil, that there's struggle in it, and that it might not be pretty. So I'm more interested in being transparent about the grit of that labor.
That's making me think, though, at the same time, didn't you get a Bessie for some of the design work or not?
Yes.
You're like, but actually, Bessie,
But
because what?
actually, but I can do pretty things. It's that I still, that work cracks me up because it is the first time that people said that my work was. It's not that people haven't said that it's beautiful, but there was something very common about people being like, wow, that was a pretty work. Like there was really beautiful moments in there, and the design of it was that. I don't think that would have happened if I tried to do it.
Sure.
Yeah, there's no, I think I would, if I attempted it, it would be a mess.
Yeah, I didn't actually get to see this piece. This is the what it premiered at Dance Space Project in New York. Is that right?
Dance Space in, yeah, March last year.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that. I don't know if you want to say more about what the design was, or actually, is there a way people can look at that piece if they want to? Is it online, or is there some kind of like?
Yeah. Excerpts are online on my Vimeo page under my name. There's like an 11-minute reel that shows a lot of the range of the creative design, but it was the vision of that work was for audiences to experience it from above, transforming the slave gallery into this like the seat of privilege, and really the only appropriate seat for a slave in a church, right, is to be closest to God. So thinking through a visual design that would bring, and again, still working through the cosmos, bringing the cosmos both above and below, kind of shifting the world from being this plane that is only vertical in one direction, but to think about a spherical plane. So I worked with Gil Sperling on video and projections and Tuche Yasak on lighting. And we were really thinking of how to create a visual design that held the entire audience in multiple dimensions. So people had to look around themselves to be in the world of the work. And that is a piece where I think that the Orisha's presence and the Yoruba work is thread. It is everywhere, and that piece kind of oozes that from the beginning to end. It's ceremony. Honey Bun is my niece. Shout
I
out.
know. I love it. I love it. We got the
Do
swag.
that work.
I don't know
Oh
who
yes.
Um,
I got to
I,
shoot you some coin.
yeah, and I'm like, do we have a what's it called, a Venmo up here where people can donate to the NWA project or something? Also, is that
Oh. I think what the hell is my Venmo? I think my Venmo is Art Moves.
okay?
My work right now is getting money into the hands of as many Black, queer, trans, and non-binary people as possible, and their BIPOC allies. I'm doing a couple of projects right now. I was saying this on this call with Juma yesterday, that I'm weighing my privilege as a person who has a salary position. But I'm still, of course, and my practice is devastated by COVID-19. The halting of my practice means I don't have money to pay the people I'm working with. It means that it intervenes in developmental resources for my work, and so a lot of my practice is continuing to feed. It's just cyclical. It's feeding the work. And still, I can reliably pay my bills. So donations to me is donations to my people. And I'm going to be offering some programming in the next month that is good to do. It's service that I want to do, but it also is a way for me to get resources, funds, and just engagement out to community as quickly as I can do it.
We had another question come in, and then maybe we'll try and wrap it up. I mean, I feel like I could keep going, but let me just pose this to you because I thought it was another good one. The question is, how do you safely transfer unapologetic Blackness into institutions of whiteness and or academia?
Jesus.
I know. Good friends here.
That is the question. Thank you, Dia. Let the people know. Dia is, okay, I'm just going to now just shout out all the people I love that I'm seeing right now. Dia is a phenomenal artist and also like such an example of showing up for people in community. They go to all the shows and are constantly asking the questions of like, what do you need? So that like that's just person that my heart goes out to all the time. Thank you, Dia. Question was, how do you do that? I don't have to what?
I was gonna say, like, you don't have to have the answer to that also, because like that's
yeah.
a big...
I don't know that I have it. Some of the strategies, I guess, that I've been using to do that. I have been jokingly saying that when your age begins with an F, the universe has invited you to give none. So some of it, I think, and that should just be whatever your age is a way of being. Trusting and leaning into that work so that it isn't, because there are so many obstacles and folks and white supremacy that will show up to try to convince you that you don't know what you're doing or that you need to do it differently, that to truly embrace and be rigorous about the fact that whatever the work is, and that's been critical for me, is to keep reminding myself that unknowing is not the same as not knowing. And it has, other strategies have been making sure I have people in the room with me who trust and believe in our work, whatever their race is, so that you know that you're not alone and that you're not crazy, because white supremacy tries to convince you that you're fucking crazy. So having people that keep you grounded. Man, it is it's multifaceted, because I'm in both academia and in the arts, and in both places. Similarly, I'm finding myself, at least for academia, if I can be like super honest about it, is that I didn't set myself up or my life up to be a career academic. I have degrees, but that for me hasn't been the same thing. It hasn't been with the thought in mind that I needed to have a career in academia. So what that suggests to me is that, and a way that I try to live into it, is that I could take it or leave it. And I say that knowing that it's a privileged position to be able to articulate that, but I've been without a home and I've been poor. And I say that knowing what it's like, to not have reliable income and to not have a reliable place to stay. And also hearing my elder say to me that not all money is good money. So the moment that I need to make a different choice, I trust that I'll be taken care of ancestrally. So I have to be in academia. I'm thinking of Fred Moten, to be in but not of the university. And that means being willing to burn it down or leave it.
There you go. That's great. I feel like that's like the mic drop of our conversation. Like, just in that, well, technically we've done our time, and I don't want to keep you forever, though. It's been very nice to get a little bit of catch-up time, because it's been a minute since I've gotten to you, and this isn't even so much about us. Versus, it's about the larger us, if you will. But maybe before we go, I'll say, do you have any last thoughts or things you want to share, recommendations for people dealing with this moment, and or anything else?
Ooh, thank you. Thyme is a fantastic herb for your respiratory system. Astragalus is an immune system booster. Have those kinds of things on deck. What else would I say? I wrote this on Ava's blog, and I'm trying to remind myself of it too, is that computers are not humans. As much as I, love being connected and like reading the things and being engaged, I personally have to make space to not interface with gadgets in every day. So my prayer for people is that we actually take time to in the physical distancing from humans, that we maybe get closer to something else that is spiritual, energetic.
Super. Well, thank you for that. I am going to try and do some of that this evening for myself. Get some spiritual
Likewise.
energetic. Well, thank you, Ni'Ja, for checking in with us. I hope we can check in more soon about your
Yes.
work and just life in general, and get you back to Pittsburgh
Come
because I
on.
think you've got stuff to share with folks here.
I would love that.
So I say thank you again, and hopefully we'll talk to you very soon.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for asking me here.
Keep up with the KST Global stream, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Peace.